He was not supposed to be home until midnight, not on a Thursday, not when a seven-figure merger was hanging by a thread and every executive in the city expected him to be locked inside glass walls and conference rooms, but something in his chest had felt wrong all day, a pressure that money could not negotiate away. So when the meeting ended early and the board applauded numbers instead of souls, he drove himself home through streets he barely recognized anymore, past houses that looked smaller than they once had, past lights that flickered with ordinary life, and when his gates slid open and his car rolled up the familiar driveway, the mansion did not greet him with silence the way it usually did. Instead there was movement, sound, a kind of fragile urgency that made him stop the engine and sit there listening, his heart beginning to beat like it hadn't since before the first million, before the second, before the third, and as he stepped out, the front yard came into focus. Like a scene from another man's life, a shallow puddle glistening on the stone path, a small child standing in it with careful determination, gripping blue forearm crutches that looked far too serious for legs that small, the boy's blonde hair catching the sunlight, his brow furrowed in concentration as if the entire world depended on this one step, and beside him, kneeling on the ground, was the housekeeper he barely remembered hiring, her uniform neat but her hands trembling slightly as she spread a cloth over the wet stone, guiding the child gently, patiently, with a tenderness that hit him harder than any insult ever had, and for a moment the millionaire forgot how to breathe, because the child was his son, the son he loved in theory, in bank transfers and scheduled visits, but not in moments like this, not in puddles and crutches and fear disguised as bravery, and behind the boy, reflected faintly in the glass of the front door, was his own image, frozen, hands lifting to his head as if he could physically hold together the realization crashing down on him, because in that instant he understood something terrifying and simple. His fortune had built walls, but it had not built presence, it had provided everything except him, and as the boy took another careful step and almost slipped, the housekeeper lunged forward without hesitation, placing her own body between the child and the ground, and the millionaire's instincts finally woke up, years too late but still alive. And he rushed forward, his expensive shoes splashing into the puddle without thought, calling his son's name, a name that sounded strange and precious in his mouth, and the child looked up, surprised, uncertain, recognition dawning slowly like sunrise through fog, and that look, half hope, half confusion, was worth more than every deal he had ever closed, and as he knelt there, the cold water soaking into his trousers, he realized he had been rich and poor at the same time, rich in assets, poor in moments, rich in influence, poor in impact where it mattered most, and the housekeeper looked at him with guarded respect, not accusation, not praise, just the quiet dignity of someone who had been doing the work that mattered while he had been busy being important, and when the boy finally stepped fully onto the cloth, safe, smiling, proud of himself, the millionaire felt something break and rebuild inside him at once, a promise forming without words, a promise that success without presence was failure dressed in silk, and as the sun dipped and the ordinary world continued around them, he knew this was the real turning point of his life, not a contract, not a headline, but a moment he almost missed by being on time for the wrong things, and if you felt that moment too, if it made you pause, reflect, or see your own life differently, remember that stories like this are reminders we all need. So subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories that don't just entertain, but awaken something real inside you, because sometimes the greatest wealth is realizing what you almost lost, and choosing differently before it's too late.